All right. We are back at the Life Coach Lounge, and it brings me so much joy to be sitting here with a close friend of mine, Omar, who I met through Lumia at the Life Coach program that we're both in. Um, and so, the Life Coach Lounge, we all know what this is about. Go ahead and introduce yourself, man.
Cool. First of all, thanks for having me. Really looking forward to this as well. And so a little bit about me. I guess I am a bit of a mutt in that I'm Syrian by blood, French by birth, British by nationality. Grew up in Nigeria, West Africa, till I was like 11, Damascus, Syria till I was 17, Beirut till I was 21. And I've been in London technically ever since, and that was around 20 years ago. And then even in the last 20 years, I have also like spent time abroad as well. So I think I've lived and worked in over six different countries, and I'm on my seventh career. So I guess that's that's a quick like high level view of who I am, and yeah.
Yeah, no, that is just wild. And I haven't even heard all of those little details, all the time that we've spent together and we've talked. Um, and right off the bat, I'm already curious, like, what is life like when you've spent so much time in so many different places? What is that like for you?
Yeah, I think it's a great question to start off. I think the advantage. I'll start with the advantages. So the advantages of having such a diverse life experience is that I feel like if someone like picked me up right now and dropped me in the middle of somewhere else on the planet, I think I'd be able to figure out how to kind of like make things happen, just because it's happened to me so often.
Hmm.
Um, and so like and I think another advantage is like I can almost empathize with other people just because I've seen many different facets of the world, which is pretty cool. I guess on the flip side, though, um, having such a diverse background of like where I'm technically from means that I don't really have a home technically, and so I guess like my version of home is probably different than most people's, and it's basically um, where I've got my routines, where I've got my friends, where I've got like um, my support system, my barber, I guess, my dentist, and I'd say at least for the last 2 years, that's been London,
Hmm.
uh, which is a nice like and I'd say 2 years of consistency is like I really like I've only just realized how like I've only in the last couple of years like appreciated how important that is, like
Hmm.
having a solid grounding in a place. Yeah.
I'm gonna do my best to try and remember everything that you just said, and I'm gonna try here. One of the things that I did hear you say was there's this kind of advantage to moving around a little bit. And
Yep.
it's this idea that you can adapt a little bit easily or easier to your surroundings.
Yep.
Um, yeah. And I think that's really cool. Just being exposed to different parts of the world, different cultures. And then all of a sudden, like having that sense of confidence is what I feel like I hear you saying a little bit is, you're confident that you can go other places and you'll figure it out.
Yeah.
So that was really cool. Um, on the tail end of what you were describing as well was also kind of the flip side of that, which is finding consistency and routine and how beneficial that is. So, what are some things now that you've been in London for a little while that are important to you to maintain to keep that sense of routine?
Yeah, great question. I'd say like non-negotiables for me are daily workout, and I'd also say building in um, like for example, every couple of months I've got two buddies and we do like a big cycle together, like a big bike ride together. and it's usually like 40, 50, 60 kilometers out in the countryside. And that's like, it's like clockwork. We don't think about it. It's in the calendar. It's every 2 months. And we just, so having these rituals almost, consistent rituals, consistent, uh, yeah, practices, I think it like helps me feel, more grounded, but also like I belong, right? I know that like every couple of months I'll meet up with Luke and Vass and we'll go for a bike ride. Every Monday to Friday I'm at F45, regardless, come rain or snow, and I'll do a workout there. But other than just like physical exercise, I think also applying that even more towards other aspects of my life. So for example, I'm part of a men's circle. We
Mhm.
meet every other Tuesday, and that's another healthy practice that I've kind of established in my life that again helps me have a support system, but also a network of incredible people who are doing important work. And yeah, I think having these different uh, like activities or exercises or whatever you want to call them, just one, I guess, helps me feel more connected, helps me build and maintain relationships with like some really cool people, and also with myself. Like it helps me feel like I've got discipline, and I like I do the things that I say that I want to do, or or at least I try to practice things that are important to me.
It's cool to hear about the positive aspects of what you're able to take away from those experiences and creating, some sort of schedule where there's a routine, there's consistency. Some things like the men's circle may not be every day, but trying to get to the gym is something that you try to do every day. And I do have a question. I posted a while back about I was in like a funk and I was trying to like get out of it. And one of the things that really helped me was taking a trip to see a friend. And so I traveled, which I love to do. And then when I was there, we all put on our rollerblades and we went skating on the pier down in Florida. And I just felt like a kid again. We weren't worried about time. We weren't worried about the people that were walking. We were just doing our thing, and we were just loving the weather, skating, doing what we've done for years. And I feel like the way you talk about biking, is that the same for you? Like, do you find that kind of joy in biking?
100%. Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. Like like it's funny that you say that, because I was having a conversation just last weekend with a friend actually about like the like prioritizing joy in our lives, and joy, i.e., like just play, like just
Hmm.
fun, without like needing to like hit a target or whatever. And yeah, I'd say the biking is definitely one big part of that, because it's just like a bunch of guys just on bikes, like having fun and like cracking jokes, and like enjoying nature, but also yeah, there's a lot of good banter. And I think now that it's summer in London, other places where I'm able to kind of like bring out that like the inner child and like fun, I'd say, is through things like I love organizing like get-togethers. Like I'm organizing a picnic in a few weeks.
Hmm.
A bunch of different friends from very different parts of my life, and I love bringing people together, and that for me is another version of play.
Yeah.
Connect with people, good music, good weather, good food, and just like a nice gathering in the sunshine under a big tree.
Yeah. That's so cool. I appreciate you like painting that picture for me as well and for everyone else. Yeah, I love you said it so perfectly, prioritizing joy. And that was a time in my life where I'd kind of lost touch with it. And you also brought up, the weather, like being able to go out and do things when it's nice out. And then it makes me think just how much weather does affect us.
Yep.
And I think a lot of us are aware of like seasonal affective disorder and just the symptoms of that. And um, I think part of the challenge for me, at least, is when winter hits and it's really cold and I'm inside, I'm also the person that likes to be outside doing everything. And when I'm inside, it's like, how do I spend all this time? And so this goes back to your idea of like routine and consistency and having things that you can rely on, like activities that bring you joy, that make you feel good about yourself. I don't have a handful of those that I'm good at maintaining in those winter months. But
Mm,
I've noticed that when I start to create more activities for myself, whether that's reading a little bit more or journaling or maybe even podcasting now, like this never used to be a part of my life, but I can do this inside now. Um, they're not as bad. The winters aren't as bad. And so it's like a way to kind of it's like if we think about distractions, it's like a good distraction. Like have an
yeah.
activity that is a good one that makes you feel good for doing it. And you can just add it to the list as opposed to just sitting around questioning life and feeling like the weight of that, because like I think that's like an existential phenomenon that we all experience is like
100%.
you have too much time. What do I do with it all?
Yeah. No, I hear you. I hear you. No, the questioning life, that's something that I do a little bit too much sometimes. So I, I like what you said, having a positive distraction, one that's either creative or fun or just yeah, just having a bit of a good time is essential, I'd say, both in the
Yeah.
winter months and in the summer months.
Hmm.
Like more so obviously in the winter months and like listening to the three things that you mentioned, like you said, reading, journaling, and podcasting, all awesome. I mean, what I would maybe just invite you to think of is maybe something a bit like maybe on the creative side, like maybe singing or painting or because like I think a creative muscle is something else that I think we yearn as human beings. We yearn to express ourselves,
Hmm.
but I guess you're kind of doing that now through the podcasting. Um,
I think there's elements of it.
yeah, yeah. But like I think I took singing lessons back in January. Was it last year? I guess so. January 2022. Oof,
How was that
wow.
experience?
The only reason why I got into it was because I was really anxious. I was going through like a bit of a tough time with an ex-girlfriend of mine, and also a bit of a tough time with work, and like my anxiety like kind of spiked. I'd never been this anxious in my life, and it really worried me because I like I almost like I couldn't really function properly, and I remember reading a book by Nicole Perla called How to Do the Work, I think, and in
I've
it she
read that.
yeah, okay,
It's
it's a good
good.
one.
It's
Yeah, it's
really
very
good.
practical. It's very practical.
Hmm.
And in it, she talks about how there's various ways we can like tweak our vagus nerve, which is the nerve that you use to calm anxiety, I guess. And like there's like the more serious ways, which is like the cold showers or like the workouts. But there was a fun way, which was singing. And I was like, okay. Like
Hmm.
I was always curious about singing. I'm sure I have the worst voice ever, but fuck it. Like let me give this a shot. And I remember I took singing lessons for I think almost 3 months. And there's something about like singing and getting lost in song, especially when the music is quite deep and emotional, that really helps move things. And that really like genuinely that got me through a deep period. I wouldn't say that was the only thing I was doing, but that was like one of like the tools that I used
Hmm.
to kind of ride that wave of really bad anxiety. Yeah, don't ask me to sing though, because
Give us a little snippet.
yeah, but it was good fun. It was good
Yeah.
fun.
I appreciate one, you being vulnerable and talking about, that I guess stage of your life or that part of your life where anxiety was much higher. And it made me think of the first episode where I interviewed Ruby. And there was a point where she said she was introduced to something, which was coaching at the time, and she knew nothing about it, but she kind of took a leap of faith and just, she knew that she had some need that needed to be met. And so she took a chance on coaching. End up being a great experience. You're in a different place, you're dealing with anxiety, but you're looking for something to help you alleviate those symptoms, to feel better, to reduce the anxiety. So it's so cool to hear you talk about taking on singing, like something that's new, and you don't know if it's going to work, but you just have this belief that like I need to seek out something.
Yep.
And I always, when I hear those parts of someone's story, it just reminds me that even if there is uncertainty and mystery and like we don't know if this is going to be the answer to our problems, taking that step forward offers you something. And you found out that that did help you in some way, shape, or form, which is so cool. And music is all about sounds and vibrations and energy, and you don't even need language for it. It's that vibration that just has profound effects on who we are and our well-being and stuff like that. So also cool to hear about that.
Yeah, I must say, like, actually, hearing you say that, one of my earliest memories of us, like getting to know each other, was when I think this was back in maybe September last year. Maybe it was like a month into the program, and we did our one of our first one-on-one coaching sessions together. And I think I was in a bit of a funk, and you recommended that I listen to what's his name, the guy from.
Probably Trevor Hall.
Yes, yeah. And like you specifically chose like a live album he did in
Mm-hmm,
Charleston or
mm-hmm,
something,
mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
and like I'd never heard his music in my life, but like just putting on that once, like that album, like got me so pumped that I was out of the house. I went for a big run, and I was like singing his music, and I was like so pumped, and I was like, wow, this stuff is powerful. So yeah, I hear you on the music. It's a game changer. Like
Yeah.
it is.
Music has played a big role in my life, and I think I look at that now without realizing that I was ever doing this previously, but it is now a tool among many tools that I can leverage and rely on. That, like, when I'm in a funk now, I actually think to myself to listen to music like that, because I understand what you just expressed, and I'm very familiar with that album. And there are lyrics in that one too, so there's language, but the sounds plus the lyrics just speaks to who I am, and just takes me from a place that's really low to a place that's really high. And that place that's really high is the place that makes us feel like we're thriving. It makes us feel like I can take on these things in life that are really tough. And the other thing too is there is a lyric, and I think this might have been the one where one of the songs at the end of it, he's just repeating. So it's like a mantra. And he says, I'll follow you. And I was on a run myself where when I finally processed that for myself, I all of a sudden it was like a light bulb went off, and I was like, I'll follow you is not someone else. It's you're speaking to yourself. And for me, that stuck with me. And I almost recite that sometimes, even without the music. So the music is still with me. I carry it, whether it's on or not. And it makes me trust in myself no matter what I'm doing. And
I
that
love it.
I have to follow myself. I have to trust that I can lead the way for myself. And that will take me to where I need to be.
Yeah. No, dude. I love that. I think you said that perfectly. I actually just got off a practice coaching session an hour ago with one of our classmates, and that's basically the gist of where I'm at in my like if I summarize what came out of the coaching session, it was like for me to like my next growth phase, I guess, is my ability to just back myself more, and to really back myself. I think I've always had a habit of leaning on colleagues, partners, like as we all do. But I think backing oneself 100% and really like having that intrinsic um, belief in one's
Mhm.
ability. Like not to get it all perfect. Like okay, like it's okay to trip up and fall sometimes, but regardless, to be able to stand back up and to do what needs to be done to get to where you want to get to. And that's something that I'm basically it's like my next mission. Like it's
Mhm.
like it's my next mission in life.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm going to be focusing on for the next 10 years. Like really like strengthen that muscle. Like how am I going to back myself? How am I guess that's why I've decided to become a coach.
Yeah.
Because it's me. There's nobody else. I can't hide behind anybody else. Like if the coaching business succeeds, it's all on me. And if it doesn't succeed, guess what? It's all on me too. So I've got nothing to hide behind. No
Mhm.
boss, no co-founder, no one. Uh,
Mhm.
I think like that's kind of what I'm realizing. What doing this work is like is like can be really interesting and it could be a great lifestyle, but it's also there's that real reality check. Like, yo, if you're gonna do this, you might as well like yeah. If you wanna like I think if you wanna guide others down a difficult path, you need to walk that path yourself. And I
Mm.
think that's where I don't know if I'm making much sense. Sorry, I feel like I'm rambling here a little bit, but
No, I think you are making sense. I'm hearing a lot of things. It's always tough for me on this side because I'm like, what do I ask? And there's it's just so like these conversations are always just so rich with like information and things to talk about. Let me try and tweeze one thing out of there. Um, I think it's inspiring to hear someone talk about themselves and say, I know that I've depended on other people. And
yep.
I know that that's something that I want to change because I know that my life could be different. I could learn a lot about myself. I could be more independent. And to put yourself in a situation um, now that you're coaching, which is one, I believe it's something that you love that you get to do. But at the same time, it comes with those challenges. You know, you are your own boss. You have to show up for yourself. You have to do all the work behind the scenes to create a business and a service that is available to people out in the world. Because if you didn't do it, like, especially the way that we are doing it, it wouldn't be available otherwise. And I think on this podcast, we talk a lot about like the impact of coaching, all the positive benefits that it has in people's lives. And so you are now creating like an additional layer to that, like a small sphere among the big picture of what coaching really is. Like you're one place where people can now go when they feel like coaching is what I want and what I feel like I need. And you're now that's available. And you're also so there's like this journey that you're on behind the scenes, and then you're also meeting people in the middle of their journey while they're trying to figure out stuff for themselves. And yeah, I think who you are and what you bring to the table is inspiring when you think about it that way.
Thank you. Yeah. Like I've been on my own quest, I guess you can call it that, for 8 years now. And it was a mixture of like I'd say therapy, Vipassana, which is a 10-day silent retreat. I've done some plant medicine journeys. I've done a lot of coaching, and I'd say what probably moved the needle the most for me was working with phenomenal coaches, and specifically two over the last 8 years. And I guess that's why I decided, after building my last company, that the next thing I want to get into is coaching.
Mm-hmm.
Because I want to take because it really did have a massive impact on my life. And so now that I've kind of walked the walk, um, I might be a few steps ahead of others who might be where I was 8 years ago, and maybe help guide them through any challenges that they might be facing. So that's kind of been I guess my most recent raison d'être, which is a French word for reason of being, I guess.
Mm.
Um, yeah,
Is that another way of saying like your purpose, like what you feel like you're meant to do?
purpose. Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Very
guess in
cool.
England they say raison d'être. Maybe not in the US. I'm not sure.
I have not heard that word, but
Yeah.
I'm learning some Italian. I have some friends that are learning French, so they might appreciate that you threw that in there.
Okay.
That's really cool. Um, I have some questions here. I actually wrote some questions down, which I don't normally do. Um, but after our chat recently, I was like, you know what? Let me just think about when I think about my interactions with Omar, like what are some more things that I want to know, that I feel like people would enjoy hearing about. And this podcast is about coaching. It's about creating awareness. Um, what initially inspired you to seek out coach training?
Um, yeah, great question. I'd say this was August last year, probably even earlier than that, maybe even July. I'd recently left my startup and my girlfriend, ex-girlfriend, sorry, and yeah, I was in a bit of a funk, obviously, and I was worried about what I would like what I was going to spend, like what I was going to do in the next phase of my career. I'd spent the previous four years building a tech academy, which was a lot of fun, but was also quite stressful. And I think I reached some level of burnout. So I was in a pretty bad state. And after like 3 4 months of just kind of like recovering, through the singing and all that stuff, um, like I started to think, okay, well, like, what am I most curious about? And it was usually like the world of emotional mental health and personal development. I was always quite I read quite a lot of books about the subject, and I was always very curious about um, like being the best version of myself. And if I looked at most of the Instagram accounts I followed, it was mostly like incredible coaches who have a lot of great advice or tips. And so I said, well, if this is what I love, well, maybe it'd be a good idea to explore potentially starting a career as a coach. Um, with no expectations, I said, you know what, let me invest in this coaching program and see where it leads. And the program ends, I think, next week. And I'd say it wasn't until maybe just 6 7 weeks ago that I decided actually this is what I want to do, like full time. Um, and I made the announcement on Instagram, and I sent an email to just a few friends like 7 8 weeks ago, and it's had like surprisingly it's had quite a lot of positive, like a lot more people that I thought would actually responded and said, "Yo, this is interesting. Sign me up for one of your free coaching sessions." And that, like, for me, that was like a big eye opener because I actually thought like a lot of my friends would judge me for leaving a startup and prior to that a career in finance and private equity to become a coach. And I think the the responses I've been getting is actually, dude, like, we need this. Like, we need more men who are kind of guiding other men, I guess, because I'm like, obviously I'm a men's coach, um, like through maybe difficult times. Um, and so, given the fact that I've been doing this work for 8 years, I feel like I almost feel like I'm a bit of a Sherpa, like like I'm guiding you up the mountain because I've done this path so many times.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I think that's kind of like a strength of mine. Um, that I've done the work myself for 8 years, and then I've also been trained in order and how to help others, and now I'm kind of like combining those two to really help others climb. Does that answer your question? Yeah,
I think so. The one
yeah.
thing that keeps coming up in my mind is you had talked a little bit about your purpose, and this just is more of a detailed glimpse of like how that kind of transpired and where coach training took you. And also another example of investing in yourself and not knowing what the result was going to be, but the outcome where a couple weeks ago you announced it's official. I'm a coach. I'm doing this. And, you trust that this is the direction that you want to go in, at least for now. That's the payoff. And how are we supposed to know what we're supposed to do if we don't invest in ourselves, if we don't take the leap of faith, if we don't, at least attempt to design some sort of action plan that is going to result in how I want to live my life, what I think my purpose is, and trusting that even if the direction changes at any point along the way, that's okay too. But you went through this program. I have the luxury and benefit of connecting with you, and now we're sitting here doing this podcast. Like, this podcast with you would not exist if you didn't do that also. So now it's like, wow, that butterfly effect, and us sitting here now and, talking to more people about these types of experiences. It's just really cool. And it's cool that our paths have now intertwined because of that as well. So it's all good to me. It all sounds good to me.
I know I hear what you're saying, and just maybe to provide a little bit more on what you just said. So, like, for me, when the second I announced it, I announced it. Okay, like, it's almost like I told myself, I told my friends, but I also told the universe, like, yo, I'm a coach now, and we'll see what happens, but I'm gonna give this a shot. I'm gonna back myself.
Mhm.
The universe, I know this might sound woo, but the universe, I feel, responded in 2 weeks. 2 weeks after I made that announcement, a podcast was released where I was a guest. I recorded this back in January. I completely forgot about the podcast. And that podcast I recorded with a friend of mine, and we talked about men's work. And she happened to release it. It took her 2 months to get it edited, whatever. So she happened to release it 2 weeks after my announcement. And the way, like, the stars aligned, and because that podcast, like, basically defined exactly my, like why I'm doing men's work, why I'm
Mhm.
focused on men's coaching, and it just kind of lined up perfectly, and that really helped kind of like spread the word about, like, the work I'm doing, and it's just got a lot more people following me and, like, reaching out to book me in for consultations. And then 2 weeks after that, my co-founder reaches out of the blue and says, "Hey, I want to run a workshop for our students. Would you be interested in maybe chatting about the work you're doing? This your new coaching career?" I'm like, "Yes." So
Mhm.
again, like, so just to echo what you were saying earlier, I think the once we start backing ourselves, I'd say, like, and backing, like, our deepest, truest selves. That's when
Mhm.
I almost feel like the universe kind of like starts to line things up for you, because it's like, yes, this is exactly where you need to be, and we're going to
Yeah.
help you get there. And it's funny because, I haven't really done much in the last couple of months. Like, things have just been dropping on my lap. I met up. You and I were chatting yesterday. Like, yeah, do you want to get on a podcast tomorrow? I was like, okay, let's do it.
I love it. The spontaneous nature of it all. And yeah, I love just that things start happening, like the takeaway is things start happening when you start trusting in who you
Yeah,
are, what you're doing, aligning with that purpose, and yeah, just taking some steps in some sort of direction, and it's offering you everything that you need. And like you said, if it's the universe that's working with you, the universe is going to inform you whether that direction is the right direction or not. And I feel like it's, like the word like flow comes up in my mind, or like this dance with the universe. And again, if you're dancing with someone and you're stepping on their feet, like, you're doing something wrong, right? If you're dancing, you're not stepping on their feet, it feels right. Feels like,
yeah,
okay, we're doing the thing. So maybe it's the dance with the universe is what we're doing.
I like that.
Part of this podcast is just like sharing these stories and highlighting parts of it, extracting the wisdom, talking about how we can coach ourselves through things. And there's always like a shift in energy. Like, as soon as the podcast starts, I notice like these shifts, and I notice that just by us talking, like, I feel like it's uplifting. And that's, again, part of the mission of this podcast is to do just that, is to share these stories, because I'm already making connections in my own life. I'm making connections between your story and someone else that I had interviewed previously. And the more connections we make, the more we're relating, the more we're connecting. And I feel like the more we have the opportunity to learn about ourselves and to think about things just slightly differently. Or, someone's hearing you talk about your story in such a unique way, like the combination of things that you've been through. No one else has been through it exactly that way, but we can still relate. And so to see it through your lens for a little bit, I feel like is something that gives people a different perspective. It makes them feel maybe a little more energetic and like activated, and almost want to just engage more deeply in their own lives
Mhm.
and realize like, oh, I'm going through all that stuff. And yeah, life is not always easy, but I forgot that I have these tools that I can use. What is my purpose, right? Like, I feel like when we share these stories, that's the beauty of what seems like you can take away from it. And so I just wanted to talk about that a little bit because I appreciate you coming on here and sharing your story, because it is impacting the world. Um, Even if it seems like the most like minute miscellaneous detail, I'm sure someone out there has something to relate to. So
Thank you. No, thanks for saying that. I appreciate it. It's like yeah, I think you're right. Like sometimes we might think, well, what's going to come out of a podcast? But you're right. Like people like we don't know how this might impact somebody sitting somewhere. We don't know where
mhm.
to maybe check in with themselves and maybe make a shift in their lives because of maybe something that they're stuck in. So yeah.
Yeah, awesome. All right, I have a few more questions. In coaching,
Yep.
we talk a lot about strategic goal accomplishment. And there is this idea that a lot of us may have like a big meta goal that we set out to pursue. And it's something that we want to achieve that we know is going to change our lives dramatically. Um, and we believe that it will be a positive change, like something that we're pursuing because we want to make those changes. And so what is your process, or maybe an example of a goal that you've set for yourself and just your own personal journey through pursuing that meta goal, and maybe even some possible sub goals that also contributed to the meta goal?
Cool. Okay. That's a big one. So I'd say it was actually just on Monday. Have you heard of the circle of life? You know, where you have different parts of your life and you kind of measure them from 0 to 10 to see where things are good and where things might not be as good. Yeah.
Like an assessment?
Yeah. I'll show you what I did basically.
Yeah, it sounds like a holistic type of assessment. Yes, I have seen one of those before.
Cool. So I did this on Monday. And what I realized, like for the first time in a very long time, 80% of my wheel of, I think it's called a wheel of life actually. My wheel of life is pretty good, like above average. Nutrition, exercise, spirituality, self-esteem, life purpose, environment, healthcare, play, stress, mastery, exercise, all pretty high. The one or two that weren't doing as well, sadly, were work and finances because I'm obviously I haven't worked in a while and now I'm launching this new business, right? And so I guess so my meta goal, like after working on this on Monday and realizing, okay, cool, well, like now I know where to focus my energy, right? And it's obviously
Mm-hmm.
on building a business that has a positive impact on people's lives, that provides me with um, um, financial independence, right? Like I'm making enough money to sustain myself. Um, that also gives me, I guess, location independence, which for me is
Mm-hmm.
an important thing. I've been working for myself now for the last 10 years, and like I want to have the ability to work from home or a co-working space or a cafe as and when I choose.
Mm-hmm.
So like, and I think a fourth thing for me, like in terms of meta goal, is to be able to constantly hone a skill set, right? So learn and then apply, learn and apply, learn and apply. And I feel like building a coaching, I wouldn't say a coaching practice, because for me, this is more than a coaching practice. This is like what I'm trying to build here is like a almost like a community for men where I want to, and I don't want to be the only person here. Like I'm happy to like start building it, but I'm like what my vision is I want to be able to bring in other coaches or other facilitators to run men's circles and to coach men and to maybe even offer some workshops and some courses on how to help men basically, you know, lead their lives with integrity and lead their lives from a place of strength and abundance and play, as opposed to fear and resentment and anger I genuinely believe this is an underserved market. I feel sadly men are the least likely to seek for help, yet they're the ones who probably need it the most.
Mhm.
Um, so to answer your question, my meta goal is really to build a business that is beyond Omar coaching. That is basically working with men. I want to have an impact on a lot of men, and I want to help them become better, stronger, happier versions of themselves. And I'm only just starting. Like it's only been a few weeks, right? So like there's a part of me that's really excited, and there's a part of me that's really scared.
Mhm.
Like obviously there's a part of me that's like, who are you to even think that you can even do this?
Mhm.
Um, but then I realized like, it doesn't have to be perfect. Like I don't like it's there's gonna be bumps along the road, but as long as I'm committing to like a goal and then working like reverse engineering what that goal is on
Mhm.
a quarterly, monthly, weekly basis. Like, I'm sure there are days where I might slip up, but eventually I will get there, right?
Mhm.
Or I will get a certain version of that. That's kind of what I'm hoping to do. And just to kind of like to say like, and the reason why I know I can do this is like I built a company 5 years ago that did basically that. But it wasn't for men's work. It was for a different subject. We were selling digital marketing courses, and we did really well. We opened up offices in 7 cities. We were doing hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue, and we were doing really, really well. So I know I have it in me to actually do this, but now I just need to take that experience and apply it to um, probably a more challenging subject. Like
Mhm.
I'd say it's easier to sell a digital marketing course than to convince men to actually look in the mirror. But I don't know. I guess I like a challenge, right? And I believe that this is a worthwhile um, purpose.
Wow.
So yeah, let's see what happens.
I see your vision, and I understand like your idea of that meta goal. Some of the things that you said right at the tail end of that, I'm like, oh man, just want to like capture that. But what's if you can, what's like one example of, I think we all now understand your vision, what you're working towards, and just as a way to like talk about how effective goals can be and how we can strategically create action plans around them. What would be a sub goal that you would wake up tomorrow and put your time and effort and energy into that contributes to the meta goal? Because the meta goal is you're not going to accomplish that overnight. So that's where these sub goals come in, which is a big part of coaching, and they're so effective. Is what do you do tomorrow that, if the meta goal is 10 years from now, what do you do tomorrow that gets you one step closer to that meta goal?
Yeah, that's a great question. So tomorrow morning, I am actually working on a deck for a workshop. It'll be my first ever workshop that I'll be giving on the subject of mental health, emotional health. I'm actually not focusing on men for this one because the people like the people that I'll be offering this workshop to is a mix of men and women.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, but like I'm due to give that workshop in a couple of weeks, and I've kind of written out like what I want to talk about, and now I just need to like put together the deck. like the actual presentation for that. And that's a sub goal, right? And like the idea is that in 2 weeks I'll have my first piece of like my first ever workshop on the subject that I can repurpose if I wanted to, right? Like I can
Mhm.
use it obviously in the live workshop, but then I can potentially repurpose it on my Instagram page, on my website eventually, and use it to help provide people who are interested in the space with a bit of a high level view of what is the work that we do and why is it important, and actually it needs to be super practical too. So I'm hoping to give whoever listens or joins the workshop like actual practical tools that they can therefore apply into their day-to-day lives to actually, you know, step away with a result, right?
Mhm.
Uh, so I'd say that's one thing that I'm working on tomorrow, and that's like between
Yeah.
10:30 and 1 p.m. I've got that blocked out for that, and that's non-negotiable.
Right.
Like I like I won't move anything for that. That's really important. So what like the way I've kind of planned my weeks is my mornings are sacred. Like anytime before lunch, and that's when I do the heavy lifting. Like I do the gym. I have a healthy breakfast, and I obviously get showered, and then I smash 2 hours of like deep work before
Mhm.
lunchtime. And at least that way I know that if I do nothing else for the rest of the day, at least I've done the hard things first.
Mhm.
And that's something that I'm trying to build in. It's like obviously
Mhm.
there are some days where that doesn't work, but like on most days I'm trying to like build that habit because I think it's a really important habit.
And that
Yeah,
goes back to where we started the conversation, which is creating a routine that works, looking for, and I think you had said like finding more value in consistency
yeah,
and routine. And so that's seems to highlight how you're practicing what you're preaching. Um, and yeah, that's incredible to hear. Again, I think that gives us a good idea of how what you're doing tomorrow contributes to the big goal. And I
100%.
think and I think too, like it just goes to show that it requires work. It
Yep.
requires showing up day in, day out, some way, shape, or form. And for me, it makes me think too, just as a way to like send a different type of message out there, is I think all of us want to be productive. We want
Mhm.
to, you know, maximize all the energy that we have and put it into everything that we want to accomplish. But there are also days, like you just said, where it doesn't work out the way you wanted to. And so, what is that telling us? That maybe I need a little bit more rest. Maybe I've been so productive that it's time for a break. I need to step
Yeah.
away.
Yep.
And for me, whether you deem that as a sub goal or not, I see that as a sub goal. I see that as another piece of the puzzle because if you kind of neglect or disregard the fact that you need rest or you need to just step away for a second, and then your mental health or physical health, emotional health starts to take a dive and now you're in a bad place, well, then it's likely that a lot of the things that you're doing aren't contributing to the meta goal. And all of a sudden, now your priorities have changed, and
Yep.
now you have to prioritize your health because of those decisions. And
Yeah.
so my point is just to say that it's okay. Like every day is not going to be perfect. Like it's creating this routine, trying to stick to it, and realizing like when can I give it everything I've got, and when do I need to step away for a second. And all this ties to more of our conversation too, right? Like finding those things that bring you joy,
Mhm.
stepping away for a second and saying, I don't need to get work done right now. It's more important for me to just go have fun like children do, right? Um, so yeah, no, really cool. I appreciate you taking us on that journey of your goal and what you're working on in your life. I think it's a good time to wrap it up. And I think I have one more question for you. This is one that just came to me yesterday. If this podcast was going to reach every human being on planet Earth, what is one message that you'd want to send to them right now?
Wow. Like the first thing that comes to mind is really like back yourself. Like like I think that's just like remember to back yourself. Um think that's been a big one for me. I feel you know, I've always been reluctant to back myself and like truly back myself. Um, and yeah, I think like the world needs more people who have confidence in themselves, like regardless of whether you're going to make mistakes or not, but really like become self-aware, know where your demons are, befriend your demons, and then once you've got your house in order, then you can start backing yourself with a bit more confidence. Sorry, that's a bit of a long answer, but like that's I think that's what I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I just trying to like absorb that. And I think that's a theme that could be a whole nother podcast. And
Yeah.
I know we touched on it a little bit today, but ultimately that question is just a reflection of who you are. A theme that's, seems to be very relevant in your life, and just another way that we can work on ourselves. We're all experiencing something different at different points in our lives right now that's really important to you. But like I said, I think there's a lot of people that can relate to that, and just kind of start to sit with it, see where it takes you. What happens when you start backing yourself? I think that's the next question. And once you start to see how that changes your life, um, you get to decide, like, is this better? Is this worse? Where can I take this? So yeah, yeah. Thank you. Now the world knows. They know to back themselves, be courageous, be vulnerable, be bold. Um,
Like
Very
yourself.
cool. Very cool. Well, I appreciate you doing this podcast.
My pleasure.
Um,
It was
yeah,
fun.
it's such a pleasure to talk with you, and
Right.
um, to create something else where we can just inform people about what coaches do, um, kind of how we spend our time behind the scenes. I think that's kind of like what this conversation was, is like, how do two coaches spend their time behind the scenes? What do they talk about? Why is it that we see coaches on social media talking about all this inspirational, motivational stuff? And ultimately, it's a lifestyle. It's the things that we value. And it's also filling like these gaps in the world where if there's like darkness in one place or in someone's life in particular, this is a way to shine light in that dark place. So
Yeah.
thank you for contributing to that. And yeah,
My
it's been
pleasure.
awesome.
Awesome, man.
Cool.
See you. See you,
All right.
Leroy. Bye.